On today's show, in our audience, to my right, to the viewers' right as well, is first guest Domenic Denisi. Domenic, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Domenic is part of Foolproof Evangelism and has a website, foolproofelvangelismfellowship.com. Next to him is Dr. John McTernan from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Thank you for making the trip today. Dr. John has a ministry called Defend and Proclaim the Truth, and also has written a book called As America Has Done to Israel. And Dr. John, you have a blog called johnmcternan.name, and that's John McTernan, T-E-R-N-A-N.name.
Correct.
Thank you for coming. Appreciate you. And welcome back to the show again, Dan Courtney.
Thank you.
Dan is co-founder of Upstate Atheists and is now president of Free Thinkers Upstate New York. And they also have a website which is funyGroup.org.
Correct. Thank you.
Dan, thank you for coming. And to his left is his brother, Bill Courtney. Bill, thank you for coming. And Bill is the other co-founder of Upstate Atheist Group up in New York. So thanks for coming back to the show. We appreciate you guys coming.
You're welcome.
And on today's show, we're going to start talking about the authenticity of Christianity. And my first opening remarks were, why Christianity? What makes Christianity so different amongst all the religions in the world? So I would like to start off with, first off, with Dan or Bill, whoever would like to chime in. In your opinion, is there any difference between what we would define as biblical Christianity as opposed to other views out there, other religions that are out there in the world? Is there any remarkable difference to you, or is it all just one and the same?
Well, of course it's different because there's different doctrinal assertions that are made by Christianity versus other religions. But I think in its essence, I think it's very similar to other religions in that there's a supernatural component, a component of belief that's required. I would say at their core, almost all religions go back to what I would call theory of mind. And what theory of mind teaches is that people have this built-in mechanism where they look for intent, not only in other people, but in other things. And it's really an extension of that built-in ability to discern intent, or what we believe to be intent, which is the root of all the religions, no matter what you call them. And they each diverge into their own specific doctrines. And I could talk a little bit more about that, specifically what I mean by that theory of mind a little bit later.
Okay. Bill, do you have any comments? Pardon?
Only that, yeah, it depends on your perspective as to whether it's the same or different. I guess my feeling is that it really isn't a lot different than any of the other religions that either exist or have existed, except for the fact that it appears to be one of the most successful ever, by virtue of the fact that it's lasted a couple thousand years, that it has millions of adherents, and it has outlasted and in fact taken the place of other religions from history that have died out. I suspect that sometime in the future, Christianity will also pass the way of the worship of Quetzalcoatl.
Yeah, I think who was a renowned atheist who said Christianity would die? I can't remember his name. They ended up buying his castle and printing Bible. It was quite a funny thing. But anyways, anyway, I'll move on. Sorry, my own comment there it's interesting. I'll move on to Domenic. Domenic, how would you respond to the comments that were made there? What's your view? Is biblical Christianity different than other religions that are in the world?
Well, it certainly is, because it's based upon relationship, and that's what separates it from other religions in the world. Something that Dan and Bill mentioned is very true. What they're talking about actually is in the Bible. In the book of Ecclesiastes, it says God has set eternity in the hearts of man. So that void was put there by God and was put there for a reason, so man could actually have a relationship with God through what Jesus Christ did for man. The interesting thing about Christianity is that it's built upon a blood sacrifice. A man actually, fully God, fully man, willingly laid his life down for people. And that's the whole motivation behind Christianity. The whole motivation behind me or John or anybody else who's in this audience who's a follower of Jesus Christ follows him because of the act he did. For the fact based upon that Jesus Christ came, lived a sinless, perfect life, went to a cross willingly, laid his life down so that people would have the opportunity to enter into a relationship with God the Father. And so again, going back to the first thing that I mentioned, I agree with you, there is that hole, there is that void in the heart and the mind, because they're connected. And it can only be satisfied, it can only be filled with that personal relationship with God that comes through the blood sacrifice of Jesus Christ.
Dr. John, how about you? Any comments to add to that?
Yeah, I'd like to answer your question at first. It was Voltaire.
Voltaire, thank you.
Right, and 50 years after Voltaire, he said 50 years after he died, Christianity would be proven wrong and no one believed in it. And 50 years to the day after he died, the Geneva Bible Society bought his home and printed Bibles in it. So it was Voltaire who we were talking about. Christianity is radically different. I mean, radically different than any other, if you want to use the word religion, because all the other religions is basically some sort of ceremonies or rituals in your way to approach God. You do this, you don't do that, you do this, you don't do that. The essence of Christianity is that God became a man in the person of Jesus Christ. The creator of the universe became a man, and that we then enter into relationship with the Creator. It's something like Dominic mentioned. So the difference between Christianity is we don't do works, rituals, because if you looked at all the other religions, the Buddhists have certain, Hindus have certain rituals, the Muslims have certain rituals, even the Jewish people have certain rituals as a way of pleasing God, as approaching God. In Christianity, it's God became one of us through the person of Jesus Christ, and we can enter into a personal relationship with the Creator of the universe through faith in Jesus Christ. So I see it, Christianity is unique from all the other religions.
We keep going with this dialogue. Would you guys like to add to that? I guess we'll start with Dan.
Yeah, I was just curious, you mentioned that it was different because other religions have ceremonies. Are you saying that Christianity does not have ceremonies related to its Christianity?
Well, I think we're zeroing in on evangelical Christianity, right?
Right. And you did clarify, because I was kind of thinking we do some, quote, ceremonial or things, if you will, but he clarified that we don't do those ceremonies to please God. Right. That was his comment. But go ahead with that.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, there's certainly, Catholics are considered Christians, and I think there's no doubt that Catholics have all sorts of different ceremonies that they perform as part of the function of the religion itself. But I understand your point about trying to please a God isn't in the ceremony itself. Although I guess that begs the question, what's the point of the ceremony? Let me just go back, I guess, something that Dominic mentioned, and that is that God became man, so he was somehow fully man and fully God. I guess that means, not to be sarcastic, but as far as a logical fallacy, that's called an equivocation, because what you're doing is you're saying he is 100% human and he's 100% non-human. So it's a logical contradiction. So I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit more, but it's an assertion that doesn't logically hold up. There has to be some character to this God which is identifiable. And what we're doing is we're equivocating when we're saying he's all human and he's all God. And it's the same thing with the Trinity, is he's three persons in one, or three personages, if you will, in one person. It's logically inconsistent. Now you can believe that, and many, many people obviously do, but logically it just doesn't hold up.
Okay. Well, you know what? If you don't mind, let's dive into that, because it's a very important aspect of Christianity, and how God put himself in the form of a man. Jesus did that. How would you like to answer that? I'll go to Dominic.
Well, again, I'm agreeing with some of the things you're saying. It does. Christianity defies logic. And the Bible clearly states that God uses the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. And so something we may use or look at as an outcast or write off, so that doesn't make sense. God will show his glory in that. And with that being said, again, I agree with that point. It does require faith to believe in Jesus Christ. The Bible clearly states not all men have faith. Also in the New Testament, in the book of John, it talks about in the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God. And the Word was God. And the Word became flesh, that's Jesus Christ, and dwelt among us. By God becoming man, we actually have had a better way of identifying with his nature. The Bible says he was tempted in all ways, yet without sin. And so we knew in the Old Testament that he was loving and he was